To another episode of the Clay News and Views podcast. Today, I am excited to have with me Green Cove Springs City Councilman Ed Goff. Ed, thanks for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me this morning, Josh, and thanks for allowing this forum for elected city government.
Yeah, the goal is, you and I were talking a little bit before we recorded, the goal is to let people hear from the incumbents/candidates and just hear about who they are and why they want to do the job mostly. So tell us a little bit about you. Who is Ed Goff? Who are you, and how did you end up on the city council?
So back in 2011, we moved my family and the company to Green Cove Springs. That's a story in itself. But we came out of Pompano Beach, had started a company down there 30 years before. We're in the fishing supply business, both the commercial and the recreational or sport fishing business. Um, and that's grown significantly over the last 30 years. Kind of proud of that. But yeah, we came to Green Cove in pursuit of the building that we currently own, and have since purchased the building across the street as the company's grown. In that process, Green Cove was very gracious to me. It was gracious to the 6 employees who moved with the company from Broward County up to Clay County. Since that day, my employees regarded as the best move we ever made or best decision we ever made, and I feel a debt to not only to the community of Green Cove but to Clay County in general. They embraced us. They gave us what we needed to continue to be successful, and that's kind of where it began and ended. And shortly thereafter, one of the new city council members asked me to participate in the Planning and Zoning Commission. So I spent 4 years on planning and zoning. I was the chairman of that commission for a short period of time and learned quite a bit about the planning process and more about the zoning process. And at that particular point in time, the First Coast Expressway was under construction, not quite as advanced as it is today, but it was obvious what was going to happen with that progress.
Interesting. So for people who don't know, I know what it is, but I don't want to take for granted that all of our listeners might know. What is the Planning and Zoning Commission? Like, in a nutshell, what do they do?
So Planning and Zoning Board is a representative nominated by the city council members. So there's 5 city council members. Each council member gets a representative on the Planning and Zoning Board. This is a voluntary position. There's no pay. They meet once a month, sometimes twice a month, to review building applications, changes in zoning, code issues. So there's quite a bit of length and breadth to the testimony that you hear at the Planning and Zoning Board. Not very well attended as far as the meetings go, but I think as an introduction to city government and local government, it was invaluable to me.
Right. So they play an important role in sort of helping to decide what's going to be built where, or what sort of businesses might be coming into the city, or new housing developments, and what's allowed to be put where. So that, yeah, I do think that is such a complex thing that I think even I don't fully understand it. I know at a high level what it is and what it does. So you go from there, and then did you you think about running for city council after that, or like did you serve on any of the other boards, or?
I did. Well, I did. I left the Planning and Zoning Board, and at that particular point, several members were terming out, and I don't want to say recruited. It didn't take much. Again, I felt that I have an obligation and a commitment to Green Cove. Planning and zoning gave me some insight, and I thought that I could use that at the city council level, and ran for city council. I ran unopposed that first year, and then for my second term, I also ran unopposed. This third term, which you're allowed 3 terms before you term out, I do have a competitor. Not
Yeah,
sure that's
opponent, I think, is what people usually say, but no
opponent.
worries.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
But
So
anyhow,
what do
that's
you So you want to do 3 terms. You want to do the full amount that you're allowed. There must be something that you like about the job of being a city councilman. What do you like about the job?
well, city council is like any other job, and I'm not sure job is the right term for it, because if you do it right, it's full time. the amount of events, the obligations, the meetings, the interaction with, the citizens of Green Cove Springs sometimes requires a lot of time, a lot of effort, and often some treasure. So I do enjoy that. I do enjoy seeing the progress that we've made. As an incumbent, the question is, hey, what have you done? What's your record? And
Right.
I am not only proud of that record, but you know, I uh, I think we've done a great job.
Right. So what's all right on the flip side of that? What's something that you don't like about city council? There's got to be some part of it, some aspect of it that's sort of a grind that's not very fun, right? Like,
Well, there's all to me, all government is local. Right? We can talk about national politics. We can talk about state politics. As you start getting closer to the local level, some of those things do have an influence. So the state politics, I don't want to say interferes, but sometimes is not constructive to the local process.
yeah, there can be a disconnect between what's happening in Tallahassee and what's happening in the communities around the state. I'll put it. That's the nicest way that I can phrase it, right? So I can understand that.
I mean, especially now with, the talk about, and everybody's for it. I mean, if it makes it to the ballot, eliminating ad valorem property taxes is going to be
Yeah,
voted in. The question is, what does that look like? And that changes
yeah.
the math, on a lot of things.
Yeah, people are used to I don't know. I have some very strong personal opinions on it. I see the problem with property taxes, right? Property taxes essentially, you're beholden to the government forever, right? And it feels sort of like you don't actually own your property. The problem is the math, right? Like there's no perfect solution because without the property taxes are a clean, I don't want to say simple, but they're a less layered, less complex way of generating the funds, right? Like you have property taxes, here's the math on it, here's the value of your home, you get a bill, you pay the bill, right? When you move into, usage and consumption taxes, because that's essentially what it would be, sort of service fees and taxes on things that you use and purchase, it becomes more complicated, right? Because then you've got to do 14, 15 different things to replace that one property tax. So I can understand being a sitting city councilman looking at the proposals to get rid of property tax and imagining that's going to be a very large headache.
Well, the purpose of city government, at least in my limited view, is the delivery of services, right? That's everything from security with the police through solid waste, water, wastewater, in this case, stormwater, which has become a pretty hot topic, and
Right.
electric. How do you deliver those, and how do you do it when Green Cove's reference to a smaller community that doesn't have a large number of customers
Right.
because there's a lot of fixed costs in the delivery. Use electric, for example, the trucks and, inventory of wire and transformers and everything else. It gets spread across fewer users. And that drives up some of the cost. There are advantages to that system, certainly, but yeah. So the delivery of city services is going to be impacted, and the real question about property taxes is that a fair way to finance that system? You can get into the more regressive taxes, as you just mentioned, of sales taxes and increasing sales taxes. But in this case, I think immediately, and the fog hasn't lifted, we don't have a solid definition out of Tallahassee yet of the details, and that's where the complications live. We have to wait and see, because if we continue down this road, the burden will fall to our commercial members of the community and the rental markets. The houses that are not homesteaded will take an increasing share. Is that more fair? Is that less fair? We could probably have that debate until this evening, but
Yeah.
we just have to
Yeah,
wait and
there's got to
see.
be a happy medium somewhere. I'm not smart enough to figure it out. I do understand people's perspective when they talk about, I'm paying taxes on my home, for 30, 40 years. Maybe there's a happy medium where, You pay for a certain amount of years after you first purchase a home, right? And then if you're there long enough, it's sort of phased out because there's always going to be people moving, right? So if you buy a house, you live there 20 years, you pay taxes for 6, 7 years on it. You buy a new house, you pay taxes for another 6 or 7 years. So you're sort of generating, there's got to be a way to figure it out where people don't feel like they are a slave because that's what people are saying. Like that's the crazy, top of the line rhetoric. You hear people say that you're essentially a slave to the government. They own your home and you gotta keep working till you die to pay your your home taxes. There's gotta be a way to generate that same money, and like you said, not make it then you're just switching the unfairness is what it feels like a little bit to some folks. Like you're taking that burden and just putting it on other people instead of, making it somehow more fair for everybody.
Yeah,
So,
but I mean, the taxes, you can either look at it like that, or alternatively, you look at it and you say, you know what I'm buying every year with my ad valorem portion of my property tax is my garbage pickup, is the maintenance at the park, is improvements to, our other systems that Greenco's an old town and has some maintenance requirements that they haven't been kept at the highest level. And you get to a point where it's no longer an option, it's a necessity.
right.
Yeah, I mean those conversations exist, but in the end, we either finance those processes and systems, or we live with a lower level of service, and
Right.
that's really the question.
Yeah, because I know one thing I'm envious of, and correct me if I'm wrong. I think Green Cove, just like Orange Park, you guys get trash service twice a week, and I'm pretty, that's one of the few things where I'm like, man, I'd be willing to pay a little extra to get the garbage picked up twice a week, but those are the sorts of things, the conveniences that are on the table to get cut, right? When
And
funding changes.
even that example, right? And here's how complicated it gets. Orange Park contracts out their solid waste, right? It's a big company. The big company has an inventory and equipment and inventories and personnel, and they have many customers. Green Cove has, the citizens of Green Cove as customers, which limits that base, and yet still has a requirement of having solid waste vehicles.
Yeah.
So that fixed cost, whether you use it once a week or twice a week, is very, very closely, the same.
Right.
So even the elimination of one day of trash service, doesn't mean that your trash service is going from $20 a utility bill to 10. May go to 17, given
Yeah, because you still have maintenance on the trucks and you still have what are you gonna do with all the garbage? It's the same amount of garbage, right? So where
and
does
it's
that garbage
personnel.
go?
You
Yeah.
ship the personnel to parks, but yeah, no, so it's a little bit more, I don't wanna say nuanced, but it's something that you look at on the face of it and go, "Yeah, I can fix that." And then the more detail you collect, you go, "Well, yeah, there is a little bit more to it."
Yeah, there's no easy solutions when a change like that comes from, on high, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's impossible for Tallahassee to understand. I think nuance is a good word. I think the nuance of each municipality's situation, right? Because the way Green Cove handles trash, you just said, is different than how Orange Park has it. The way Clay County handles trash may be different than, Polk County or Citrus County or whatever, right? Like, and if you've ever been to West Florida or South Florida, those places sometimes feel like different countries, much less part of the
Oh,
same
yeah.
state. So there's nuance all across, and it makes it more complicated. You
But
know,
the real complication, Josh, with all of this, it stands development on its head, right? I mean, because if you really think it through, the loss of property tax is the loss of promise to municipalities, counties, cities of enhanced tax collection or increased tax collection. So what you now have is for every residential home, new home coming into the community, there's no increase in tax revenue. Those new homes become a burden to the existing tax base of Green Cove,
and I
right?
wonder
So,
I wonder if a sales tax on a home purchase, and obviously you and I aren't going to solve this problem during our podcast episode here, but that's one of the things I've wondered because you just look for solutions. Maybe a sales tax when you purchase a house. I don't know what the math would look like, especially if you're talking about new development. That should generate some sort of cash, right? Like, but the thing that's going to happen is it's going to cause things like impact fees to go through the roof, right? Because you're going to have to figure out how do you bring the money in to build the infrastructure. More people, more homes means more trash to pick up. It means more area for your police department to cover. It means more people coming to your parks, more wear and tear on all of your things. So you talk about maintenance being an older municipality with a lot of older buildings and older infrastructure. More people means more wear and tear, right? So the question is, how do you generate the money that, because stuff costs money, and how do you generate the money that you need to make sure that things stay nice, and you keep the same, quality of life that people are expecting,
Yep,
that live in the city.
yep. Now, if you look at St. Johns or Nassau County, you talk about impact fees. St. John's just increased their impact fee. If you're building a 25,000 or 2,500 square foot home, impact fees over there close to $25,000.
Crazy.
Nassau County, right, declared an emergency so that they could raise their impact fees. Their impact fees more than doubled, and I think they're closer to 17 or 18. Here in Clay County, Green Cove Springs, we're less than half that.
Which is still a
So
lot of money, but again, if we want the level of service and the types of services and the quality of service that we expect from the government, that money's got to come from somewhere. It doesn't, it doesn't. Unfortunately, unlike the federal government, we here in Clay County and Green Cove and Orange Park don't have the ability to just print money out of thin air, right? Like we can't go into a $17 trillion deficit just to keep paying for things
we do
at the
not,
local
but we
level.
can effectively work towards creating an environment that is, I hate the word business friendly because everywhere is business friendly. But if you create those elements that are attractive to business, those commercial operations can greatly offset some of those expenses that the residents experience without that commercial activity. So we look at something like Walnut Street, right?
Hmm.
Walnut Street was and continues to be a model for what the potential is for downtown Green Cove. And when I say downtown Green Cove, I mean everything from the city pier to the old courthouse. It was a stormwater project. Yep. To get to the stormwater, you got to tear up the bricks, you got to tear up the sidewalks. The stormwater system there was well over 100 years old and needed not only improvement but upgrading, new materials, so that we could move into the future without without experiencing periodic flooding
Right.
downtown. So what does that look like? Well, you know what? While we're doing that, let's upgrade the landscaping. Let's widen the sidewalks. My whole goal there, I don't like talking about, what I've done. I'm proud of it, but, to actively publicly espouse it is not something I'm comfortable with. But my whole goal there, and I brought the whole thing up, was when you stop at US 17 at the stoplight at Walnut Street, if you look east, it's beautiful. You've got oak trees, you've got Spring Park, you've got the river. What did you have when you looked west? You had some 20-foot, 50-year-old palm trees that offered little shade, little aesthetics, and I thought we might be able to do better. So, with the grants that came with the stormwater, I wanted everybody to look west down Walnut Street and then look again and go, whoa, what is that down there? Take the opportunity of those 25,000 vehicles that drive up and down US 17 and sometimes get caught at that light to advertise that downtown area, it's stunning. It's beautiful. I don't think there's a citizen of Green Cove who doesn't find Walnut Street historic and attractive. Same holds for the businesses. We've had some businesses start down there. I've had a business down there for quite some time. Have a partner in that business. That business has yet to make the first dollar, but as a community service, Ed's Wine Bar is a draw. It is an attraction. It is the only thing open after 5 p.m. Continue to lose money on it, but it's enjoyable. Show up for a bingo night one night. Hopefully there'll be a seat. I mean, they've done very well. Those gals that run that place are as good as it gets, and they're the finest kind. So, yeah, Now we've got, Brian Knight, who just built the
Mhm.
Pragmatic Works building at Governor's Creek. He's got a city block down there, multiple buildings, multiple restaurants that's in the works. Just got his permits last week. So it's coming, and it all came because, the improvements to Walnut Street was like lighting a match.
Yeah.
Okay, here's what we have. And I see that improving, maybe in fits and starts, but that's a beautiful walk from the city pier. If you can get across US 17 down to the old courthouse, it's a beautiful stretch. So
Yeah, I agree. I think the Walnut Street project was done very well. You see a lot of government projects where it feels like they didn't understand the area and how people actually want to use the area that they're trying to fix. But you guys did a great job with Walnut Street. It made it more enjoyable than it was. I already enjoyed walking in that area. I work from home and sometimes I get tired of being in my house. So sometimes I'll go down to, Spring Park Coffee and work from there, and I'll take a walk, walk down Walnut Street, see what's going on down there. And I think Red's Wine Bar, it's a shame that it's not generating, profit for you, but it is a great addition. I remember when I first heard about it, being excited, thinking that's what we need is something to do down there. Yeah.
that's the first element, right? Is to, have a couple businesses open after 5 p.m. Come on down to the park. There's other restaurants there. There's the Corner Pocket. There's Roger That.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I
Yeah,
mean,
Corner
it's
Pocket has got underrated macaroni and cheese. I'll just throw that out there. I don't know the
but
people who run it, but I tell you, if you're a macaroni and cheese fan, you should check them out.
but there again, the previous city councils put $2 million into Spring Park, right? They upgraded the pool.
Mhm.
They redid a bunch of stuff down there that enhanced it and made it a more beautiful place, if that's even possible. But so between the incredible draw of Spring Park and the historic component of, it's coming, and it's not one of those things where you check your calendar. It's where you check your watch, because we now have some real investment that's going on down there. Exceedingly proud of Reds. It's a comfortable place. And, you mentioned at the beginning of the interview, small town, how do we keep that small town feeling? And I think more than most, I've spent a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a considerable amount of treasure holding on to that. And it's not just Reds, which again, I regard as a community service and an example of what can happen if you put these elements together. But Food Truck Friday.
Oh yeah, food. I always forget about Food Truck Friday. That's another great event.
So
I mean,
I
all
mean,
of that happens because of Spring Park, right? And you talked earlier about things that need money, right? Spring Park, with those $2 million worth of upgrades and investments, there's ongoing maintenance that has to be done to keep Spring Park at the level that where everybody considers it to sort of be the crown jewel of the parks in the county. There's not a park that, in my opinion, is better than Spring Park. It's on the river, like it's beautiful, it has stuff to do. My daughter and I love it. Like, almost every Saturday when the weather's not terrible, we're out there.
yeah, no, I mean, but if you look at it, right, Spring Park, when I first moved here, was what I considered the, Northeast Florida's best secret. Well, the
Yep.
secret's out.
Yep.
So I started Food Truck Friday back in 2018. My wife and I were sitting on our front porch one day. I owned the two empty parking lots adjacent to Clay Theater. I had purchased those shortly after moving up here with my partner. And it occurred to me that, I think we could probably have an event in those two vacant lots. Those vacant lots were full of concrete. It was like sitting on the surface of the moon. But we planned the first Food Truck Friday, April 2018, and had over 200 people. We had three food trucks and a band out of Baker County. Couldn't find a band that would come to Green Cove and play. We put the band on a flatbed of a local company, Star Transportation, and had 200 people. And that was the epiphany. That was where I looked at it and went, you know what? If we schedule these events and have them, once a month, this is that small town feeling. This is the opportunity for community to come together. And I don't know if you've been to one lately, but it is full of families. young kids and dogs, and everybody brings a chair. It's the only event in Green Cove where you can bring beer and wine into the park to date. And I forget, what are we, 2026? What's that, 8 years in? We have the ambassadors, the Green Cove Springs Police Department, walking through the crowd and throwing football with the kids and having our generally fun evenings. But in my universe, this is how you preserve that small town community feeling. You actually get out there and do it. Now, I have financed those events personally since their inception. We now have the city as a co-sponsor, but I am a significant investor every Friday of Food Truck Friday. I mean, I'm the guy putting the no parking signs out and
Okay.
no alcoholic beverages beyond this point. These are labors of love.
Right.
Yeah, you talk about small town feeling. I get it. And not only do I get it, and not only do I talk about it, but I put it into practice and try to implement it to the best of my ability anyway.
Yeah, I Food Truck Fridays in Green Cove are great. I've never had a complaint. I've never heard anyone complain after going. And I've been there many times. It is my second favorite thing that happens in Green Cove behind the Memorial Day stuff you guys do. The duck race down the creek, and so it's a good time. I definitely recommend it. So what does if you're given control of the city, so let's say Ed Gause is put in control of Green Cove Springs, and you can create a future for Green Cove that you think is ideal. What does that look like? What does an ideal future for the city of Green Cove look like?
Okay, so the if the world is a perfect place, right? And you're talking about a, circumstance where there's no bounds, let me start with the Governor's Creek boat ramp. You drive past it a couple times a day at least. I drive past it because I work just north of there in the small industrial park. I drive past there all the time and I look at it. And from the first time I drove into Green Cove, came south out of Orange Park, it struck me that you have three views of the river. You have the view at Doctor's Lake Bridge, right? Pretty
Yep.
stunning if you
Yep.
have never seen it before and have never appreciated the St. John's. You've got the Black Creek Bridge view, which again is picturesque, and you have Governor's Creek. We've got an old building in there. We've got 6 or 7 truck and trailer parking spots. We have a 2 boat ramps that, if you've ever used them, are in disrepair. So I look at it and I go, okay, you know what? What could that look like? And what should it look like? And, I believe that as the front door of Green Cove Springs, we could certainly spend a little effort and time making that look stunning. I don't mean just a little bit. I mean with a couple of ideas, it would be one of those things where, as a front door, you'd love to come home. Not that you don't love to come home now, but you put that out front. And that leads us into, the river. So you can leverage the park with, Food Truck Friday, and you can leverage the park as a business around the park. But I look at the river and I go, okay, Green Cove Springs. We have the largest festival, if you want to call Boater Skip Day a festival. We have the largest marine event in North Florida. Those guys who organize that event are in possession of something very strong for Green Cove Springs. And what it means for Green Cove is that, we could be a destination, a marine destination. You have all those boats. Where are they going on the weekend? We have 8 slips at the end of the city pier. We could have 30 slips at the end of the pier and welcome that market into Green Cove Springs. Right? That is probably where I would like to start, and then it depends on, what your appetite is. If you want to talk about, housing subsidies or affordable housing, holy cow, we have St. John's Landing, well run, affordable, the affordable housing destination in Clay County.
Yep.
What does that look like? Ownership, some type of operating understanding. It's in operation. It's profitable. You know, it's something to talk about. But over all this, over all of the would have, could have, should haves, sits the port.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
1,500 acres, one of the largest freshwater ports in the United States. 1,500 acres of riverfront. All right, now here's a story for you. So, yeah, we have the port. Not much to look at. There's not a whole lot going on out there. You know, the businesses that are there are important to Green Cove and all of that. But in regard to, potential energy out there, it's uh it's pretty breathtaking. But one day we get sued. The city gets sued by the port and one of the businesses out there over an apartment complex that's going in. Great. We're supposed to be working together, all this kind of thing. We get sued. We win the suit. But through the suit, one day I'm sitting here gnashing my teeth and I'm like, wait a second. Let me pull up the Clay County Property Appraiser's Office numbers on the port. I challenge you to do that, right?
Okay.
I pulled them up, and the assessed value on the port when I did that was $10 million. This
Seems
is a
low.
property that
Yeah.
will sell ultimately for $300 million. We're carrying it on the books for 10. So I scratch my head and I'm like, okay, let me think about this. And I go down to the Clay County Property Appraiser's office. I talk to the property appraiser assessor and Tracy Drake, and I'm like, hey, I'm not happy with them, but I got a bigger question. What's up? Oh, well, they have some exemptions. They're agriculturally exempt, and they have, a couple other marine waterfront exemptions. And I'm like, man, none of that applies. Oh, well, we'll take a look at it. Okay. First cut, there was a building built, that $2 million building that, yeah, man, we missed that. Okay. So we're up to 12 million. All right. Well, what else? Well, we're gonna bring some, professional appraisal companies in and we're gonna have a look. Okay. We do that, and the new appraisal, and you can pull this up, is 50. Oh, okay. So we've gone from 10 to 12 to 50. Now, if you think about what the impact on the tax roll is for that change in assessment, and I'm learning this as I go along, but that change in assessment is an immediate benefit to the Clay County School Board. Immediate.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna use a round number, about $200,000 to the school board as a result of the change in assessment. Now, the change in assessment to the county as well as to the city comes in 10% increments. You don't get it all immediately. School board gets it immediately. Municipalities get it over a period of time. So if you look at that, what does that mean? Well, that means that whoever was keeping the books probably should have done a better job. It also means that the citizens of Green Cove Springs have been subsidizing the port and continue to subsidize it, because I look at the 50 million as, again, undervalued. Now, there's all kinds of rules and regulations about how you get there, and whether there's environmental issues and things like that that influence the math. But yeah, so here we are. Green
Yeah, in
Cove
fairness
sits.
to the port, it's not their fault that the property appraiser didn't appraise it properly. But to your point, if the property's worth what the property's worth according to the law that the appraiser should be using to appraise it, so there is. I think what I hear you saying is whether it's the port, the companies at the port, whoever it is, we should make sure that if we're going to if I've got to pay my fair share as a citizen, and I'm just saying a citizen of Green Coast Springs got to pay their fair share, then the companies that are out there should do the same, right? And because it's a company with a very nice, very very high valued piece of property, their fair share is naturally going to be a little more, than somebody who owns a house somewhere within the city. So I
So
think
that's
that's
the
what.
that's the philosophy of property taxes, right? Those that have more should pay more, and those that have less should pay less. That's the definition of a progressive tax. Is that fair? Well, in this case, and you can say, well, they knew that they had a deal, and yeah, maybe. but does that mean that, everybody else's property taxes should go into improvements of the port? I'm not sure. But what it really means, and I guess the point of that story is that city council is not a it requires you to get involved. It requires you to ask questions. And really, I mean, my message today is that the currency of city council and the currency of being a citizen of Green Cove Springs is ideas. You have to have these ideas, whether it's Food Truck Friday or, looking at the tax rolls or whatever it is. These ideas come from somewhere, and they have to come from involved citizenry and the elected representatives that have to take a look at it and do it sometimes critically and often.
Yeah, as much as I like to give government of all flavors grief. It is true to say that to do the job properly of any sort of elected official, it's not just showing up to a meeting every so often and hearing what's at the meeting and then going about the rest of your day, right? There are other parts of it that are just as important. You can't fully shepherd a future for whatever thing you have a part of governing if you're not thinking about ideas like that. If you're not coming up with like, well, what should a future look like? What can we do differently? What can we do better? What are we missing? What do we not know that we should know, right? Like there's an active part of it that I think is
Well,
important. And that's the sort of candidate that I want that's not just going to sit around and say, status quo is great. We're great. Like we got to think about the future. We got to plan ahead because some of the problems that we face as a county are because we've had people who didn't think far enough into the future and didn't think about like what are ideas that we can do to overcome challenges that we don't even know we're going to have yet. So,
well, all local government is comparative, right? Whether you're talking about electric bills or the processes. So it's not a bad thing to have lunch with the mayor of Orange Park or the mayor of Keystone and discuss these things because we're not reinventing the wheel. There are other places, whether it's DeLand or Maitland, who have been here and have come up with solutions that fit their circumstance, and may help us get through. I mean, I look at US 17. Yeah, we're going to finish the First Coast Expressway in 2032, and it's going to take a lot of pressure off of US 17 coming through Green Cove. Well, maybe, and maybe not. The 2,000 homes going south of the First Coast Expressway interchange with DR Horton, and I'll guarantee you, not a whole lot of those cars are turning right out of that development. Everybody's coming north. So what's the answer there? Well, my answer would be to involve more sophisticated red lights, right? Right now, if you're heading north on 17, you're going to hit a red light because somebody comes out from a side street and wants to make a right and go north on 17. So we have to stop all of 17 for that right turn that could have happened, 100 different ways.
right.
You get these AI systems that now have the ability to predict the traffic flow, time the lights, and if you can get me from Ferris Street or the you call it US 16 down there on the Shands, if you can get me from there to the Black Creek Bridge, and tell me on my phone it's going to take me 4 minutes if I do 30 miles an hour, I'm good with that. So there are processes and improvements that can be made, but at the same time, we have AV vehicles on the horizon. And, what does that mean for traffic flow? The job of city, the job of city government does not get easier. And the amount of reading and, research is not going to get any less. Yeah, it's a serious job if you choose to take it that way.
Yep. Yep. All right. So let's end with this. I'm going to give you open mic. Give me and anybody who might be listening, the people of Green Cove Springs, give them your 30-second elevator pitch on why they should put you or keep you on the Green Cove Springs City Council.
So I'm an engaged resident. I take everything about Green Cove Springs seriously. As a as a standard, I have put my time into the creation of several things. First and foremost, and I think the thing I'm most proud of is the donation of my city pay to the Charles E. Bennett Clothes Closet. The work that those ladies do at Charles E. Bennett is second to none. They are all going to heaven. And, my contribution, though small, is emblematic of, how I hold city council. It's a serious job. I tell everybody and I joke that I'm running on the Food Truck Friday ticket, right? But legitimately, that's symbolic of the leadership and the thought process or the ideas that you'll get out of me. And first and foremost, there's not a day goes by that I don't participate in some city element or some city conversation and fall back on what I've learned in my 35 years of building a business and building a business in Green Cove Springs. I've got, almost 20 employees here, and every one of them is I'm indebted to. They're excellent, excellent young people that, they've been given the opportunity. And I think the operation of a city requires some of that experience. So I would ask respectfully and humbly for your vote, and we'll go from there. But I appreciate your time.
Well, Councilman Gaw, I got to tell you, it's been a pleasure. And we wish you, as we do everyone, best of luck in the upcoming election.
Thank you for the opportunity, Josh. You do what you do well.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.